So the Eagles are doing something odd with Cooper DeJean, but when you look into it further, it makes a ton of sense. Meanwhile, Bryce Huff's future is looking even worse, and Philly may be revealing their plan for the pass rusher. Plus, I got some first-hand Nakobe Dean news that is exactly what we're all hoping for. So let's talk about what that is, will it actually happen, and everything else from the Novacare visit at OTAs. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Let's just jump into it because the Eagles are into OTAs and we got a lot to cover. Now, technically they got started on Tuesday, but without any media access, it was hard to know exactly what was going on. However, shout out to the Eagles Autism Foundation because thanks to them, Thomas and I were able to take some subscribers for special access at the Novacare Complex. And yeah, this probably goes without saying, but it was flat out insane. I mean, never in my life did I expect to meet Nick Sirianni along with Jeff Stoutland or the fact that Big Dom was basically giving us every bit of merch he could find. Although even crazier was the fact that Dom said he was a big fan of the channel, while also admitting that he's keeping a close eye on it.
So that's a good thing, right?
I mean, I think so, but again, nothing but gratitude to everyone for making this thing happen. Which, by the way, if you're a subscriber of this channel, then I mean you too. Seriously, without all you guys' crazy support, there's no way any of the Eagles would have recognized this channel, nor would getting the Philly Dawgs autographs have even been possible. So as a big thank you, I'm going to give away this helmet on this video to one lucky subscriber, which was signed by Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, the clips that you saw in the previous segment. All you got to do is drop a like on this video and then comment Philly Dawgs. So good luck to you to win the Super Bowl helmet. Also, when the channel gets to 130,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away a signed Saquon Barkley helmet as well, so hit that sub button if you haven't already. Also, I'll share some more about the trip later in this video, but to start, let's jump into some actual hard news. For example, Nakobe Dean was seen on the practice field and dressed for Tuesday's practice, although for the record, he's not getting in full practices yet, but he is still putting in the work. FYI, Dean told us he's doing things like 40-yard bear crawls as well as some other work to the side. Which, come on, that in itself is pretty impressive knowing how gruesome of an injury a torn patellar tendon is. But the wildest news from our visit is probably the fact that Nakobe said he expects to be fully practicing in 1.5 months.
How's that even possible?
I honestly can't say, but I dang sure hope he's right about that timeline. I mean, could you imagine? That'd be before training camp that 17 is back on the field if he hits that target date. Like, I hate to be a downer, but I'm still skeptical about that timeline. Still, to those of you buying it, you're right. He looked good in the basketball video the Eagles posted, and he already committed to attending Devontae Smith's celebrity softball game on June 28th. Yet I should point out that even Nakobe admitted it's very unlikely he actually plays in it. Regardless, though, here's where I'm at. This is good news however you look at it. I mean, he's clearly motivated, especially being in a contract year and doing whatever it takes to get back on the field ASAP. After all, he's taking up ballet for some work on his rehab, flexibility, and mobility. Plus, if there's one takeaway from the meetup with the Philly Dawgs is that those dudes are different. Anyway, the other update as far as the Philly Dawgs are concerned is that the injury with Nolan Smith is getting closer to 100%, and he said that he doesn't have any concerns about his rehab. Of course, yes, if you've seen any clips from OTAs recently, then you'll notice Superman is still wearing a massive brace on his left arm. Granted, we're in what, like late May, so there's no reason for anyone to be freaking out or really concerned that he's going to miss any time. But I'll tell you who we do need to start worrying about, though, and that's Bryce Huff. Because when it comes to the attendance tracker at OTAs, Brooks Cabina shared and others confirmed that the not seen guys were Agent Zero, along with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Reed Blankenship, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, and Avery Williams. Okay, technically, Nakobe, Jihaad Campbell, and Ben Van Sumeren were also not practicing, but their absences were obviously injury-related. By the way, in case you're doubting that or just wondering where I'm getting that from, we also ran into Jihaad Campbell on Tuesday as well as Ben Van Sumeren. They're in the building. They're doing great. They said they're doing great, so nothing really to concern yourself with, but at the same time, it's not worth, pushing them or forcing them back on the field super quickly when we're just at OTAs. Which is the same thing for Cam Jurgens, quite honestly, since we also saw him at both practices. Yet with Beef Jerky fresh off back surgery, there's no reason to rush things for him either. But when it comes to Bryce Huff, that's a little bit different, even though, yes, I understand voluntary OTAs and all that. Meaning not seeing the vets and guys who don't have much to prove for a couple days is no big deal. However, when you're a dude like Bryce Huff who has everything in the world to prove to Vic Fangio, that's not a good look.
Rethink that move, son.
Let me remind you that beat writers Dave Zangaro and Ruben Frank both said that Vic Fangio is not a fan of Bryce Huff. I mean, we kind of already read between the lines on that one, but considering that Fangio is an old school ball coach that would basically practice until the regular season, practice every single day up until the regular season, it kind of feels like a death sentence for Bryce Huff to not show up.
You sure you want to do that?
Also, like Anthony DeBona pointed out, it's especially notable given that Bryce Huff was obviously available for trade all offseason, and now June 1st is approaching. Because if they were to trade Huff after June 1st, sure, it'd still be a big dead cap hit. Although in the long run, over the cap has somewhere around $15 million that Philly would save by doing that when you look at the next 5 years. And that doesn't even get into the importance of keeping the culture and vibes really high. I mean, who's to say how much of an effect he's having in that area, but it doesn't feel like the James Bradberry situation where he skipped OTAs but then ended up making the 53-man roster in training camp before, getting stashed away. Again, I talked about this and the reasonings for Bryce Huff not making the 53-man roster in my latest video, but I just think that if Howie Roseman, even for crumbs, has to trade it away, he's probably going to move in that direction. After all, you got Nolan Smith, who's only getting better, and the hunter Jalyx Hunt in year 2, who is laser-focused.
This offseason, I just know a lot more of what is expected of me and what to expect from tackles and different players across the league. So I just know a lot more. So I've been able to approach my game in a more professional way by figuring out, what moves I want to work on, who I should watch, what I should watch, being a lot more technical, because that's the biggest difference that I've seen, is that players who are elite and good, their technicality levels are on completely different levels. So if I want to be great at this position and in this league, I got to be technical. So that's what I've really been focused on, and that's what I think has really changed between last year and this year.
Are you expecting to start this year?
I'm expecting to do what's expected of me. So whatever the team needs to be done, I'll do it. I'm way more comfortable, man. Last year, it was all coming at you fast. You kind of just try to keep your head, play your rules. But now I feel as if, I can understand the game a lot more. I can play within the player that I am and have a little bit more personality out there instead of being so cookie cutter. So I'm excited about that. We're working on my moves, developing my bag, or OTAs, and then into training camp, just developing my bag and being able to work the fine details and go into the season with some good rushes.
We talked about it before, but it's pretty fortunate that the Birds actually have enough guys or depth there that they could legitimately walk away or just say, yeah, we'll just move on from a $17 million pass rusher. Of course, when you see that depth and development of potential like guys of Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, Antoine Powell-Ryland, and Patrick Johnson, it's easier to understand how that's possible.
I think with the group that we're having now, just the youth, just how excited we are to play. The speed, I think, is going to be a lot different. I think we've got a lot of different rushers in my room this year. So it's a huge loss just knowing the amount of reps that they've gotten in the football that they've seen. So you can't bounce as many questions off because they're not in the building. But I'm super excited for what we got in the room this year.
You mentioned the technique aspect of it for you. How much did working against Lane and Jordan, focus that in for you to know that you got to be at the top, sort of fundamentally?
It was huge. When you are a rookie learning a position and you're going against Lane Johnson and you don't even get within 4 yards of the quarterback every rep, you got to figure something out. So just being able to watch back reps and then ask him. Lane Johnson's a huge guy of he'll tell you, hey, try this next time, do this because I'm thinking this. Jordan's the same way, and I go back to what I said earlier. There's great leaders on the team, so just to be able to ask questions, it just bumps up everything and it tells you exactly what you need to focus on.
Just one of the many insane advantages the Eagles have over most of the entire league. You have the best offensive line, which equals some of the best, or if not the best, pass rush developmental prospects. And then also you have the best wide receiver duo. And, you look and see what happened to Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those guys had talent. Don't get me wrong. They had tons of talent. But when you go up and practice day in and day out against Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, we know how that works out. I mean, honestly, you can do that exercise at all kinds of positions with this squad. Which, on the topic of positions, Philly appears to be doing something strange with a couple guys. Now, I know it's incredibly early and it's OTAs just beginning, so let's not necessarily blow this thing completely out of proportion. Yet this one has to be brought up. Because after getting warmed up in a first glimpse at OTAs of 2025, along with the new dope banners in the bubble, notice the latest addition with the Super Bowl banner, it didn't take long before getting reports that Cooper DeJean was playing both nickel and outside corner.
What the hell is going on?
Stick with me here. I'm going to explain it all. Basically, when Fangio was in base, Cooper DeJean was in the outside, and when they went to nickel, Coop stayed as their nickel cornerback. Of course, for those keeping track, the official starting defense, if you want to call it that, was Quinyon Mitchell and Adoree Jackson at the corners, DeJean at nickel, Zach Bond and Jeremiah Trotter at linebacker, and then Sidney Brown and Andrew Makuba as the starting safeties. Remember, Reed Blankenship was skipping, so not exactly the entire full group out there. Now, on one hand, the whole deal with Coop maybe isn't a big deal. For instance, last offseason, Fangio did this time and time again where he threw guys in different positions, rotated them with the ones and twos just to see how they handled different groupings. The difference, though, is Coop's a guy who's clearly earned a ton of trust with Fangio. So even though it may have only been a couple snaps, there's clearly a method to the madness.
They're a little different. I did it a little bit in college, played both. But they're different. And on the inside, you got to prepare more to fit the run and be able to cover and do all those things. At corner, it's more worrying about covering a top guy, top receiver, with a lot of space. But I did a little bit in college, so I've been doing it a little bit early on here in OTAs. So I think just doing wherever they need me to be, is what I'll do. Right now I've been trying outside and inside, but it's definitely a tall task. Yeah, no doubt.
What was Vic's message to you about the plan?
Just saying that they were going to try me a little bit at outside when we were in base. Nothing really too crazy. That's really all he said. That I would get some reps outside.
We'll see where this one goes, and I'll keep you posted, but I still personally am of the belief that nickel is the best position for Cooper DeJean. Plus, in case you weren't aware, Markel reminded that Philly played base defense just 15% of their snaps last season, which ranked 28th in the league. So, cool, it's nice to have him out there if you need to flex or, in a bind, put him out there at outside. But ultimately, we've seen what he can do at nickel. It's basically like another linebacker out there, and especially considering some of the injuries, the concerns, the unknown with Nakobe Dean, Jihaad, Campbell, things like that, getting the guys back in rotation, I would say don't mess with it. It's fine. Versatility's great, but Cooper DeJean at nickel, that's what I'm sticking with. Oh, one more aspect from the Coop soundbite to mention, though, that I will point out, and like Anthony said, I totally agree with. The self-awareness and willingness to sacrifice from both Jalyx Hunt and Cooper DeJean, and really all the other guys, is one of the things that makes them truly special. Because quite frankly, that's been the approach of just about everyone when asked what they expect to do on the team, which is without a doubt invaluable, especially if the Birds were ever to get hit by several injuries. Look, it'd be great to be 100%, and certainly for the season, we hope we could get there, stay there, all the other stuff, but I do believe, and I actually kind of pointed this out on a previous live stream, having the injuries now, I think, works in their favor because you have a bunch of different guys that are getting reps when they may not have actually gotten those before. However, not having Nakobe Dean and Jihaad Campbell did hurt the defense on Wednesday, with both players sitting out. So without them or Reed back there, Jalen Hurts took the opportunity to carve them up, with ESP keeping track that he started a perfect 8 for 8 in the early sessions, along with some other writers noting some things changing, but also a lot of things staying the same on offense, which is what offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo alluded to in his opening presser as well.
Really, when you say different, I think it's going to be like, what do our players do best, like it's been? And then from there, we just expand upon it. Hey, we're really good at this. Let's bring this to the table and try this and see where we can take it. And I think really when you look at just our staff as a whole, we've added some new coaches, so they bring some other layers to it too, and then the knowledge of what they have from their background. So I think as we go forward, as we build this thing together as a staff, you'll see some new wrinkles here and there, but more so it's just kind of building on what our players do best. When it comes down to it, when they're out there playing, they're problem solving. Ultimately, you don't always know what you're going to get as an offense, so those guys can walk out there in the field and be confident in what they're supposed to do, but no matter what happens, they feel like they can problem solve and do the best together. And that's really what it comes down to, right? We've had a lot of coaches say the same, and then we've had, a lot of players say the same. That's huge as far as guys knowing what we want to do, when we want to do it, and then if something does pop up, we can all adjust together, which is what we have to do as a staff and players.
Because you've been with Nick obviously so long, you two are kind of linked in many people's eyes, but how do you think you differ from him in terms of philosophy or offensive understanding?
It's interesting. We go back to the Colts when him and I are together. I think there's a lot of fundamental things that we see the same way, but I do think our brains work differently. So it's a good back and forth conversational piece that we have constantly. And there's a lot of things, like I said, that he believes in that I believe in as well. And we're going to do those things. But I do think we challenge each other to grow. And he's awesome about just finding new ideas and testing the waters and saying, what if we did this? What if we tried that? And he challenges you as a coach to really continue to grow your game. So we can be, linked together, but I do think as far as like the testing each other, and, he loves to always say, right, we're iron sharpens iron and all these other things about just when you're working together with people trying to create greatness, right? You can't be great without the greatness of others. He's a big part of that, right? He pushes us as coaches to get better, and that's kind of what's unique about it.
I will say, when you take it all into context and, naturally it being just day 2 of OTAs, I'm really optimistic about this offense. For one, Vic Fangio is going to have all camp to test and challenge Patullo as an offensive coordinator. Although Wednesday was pretty straightforward as Jalen went 20 for 21 on his passes, yet to be fair, E.J. Smith noted it was more of a horizontal passing game rather than a vertical one, aka lots of shallow crossing routes and a few double moves. Still though, a solid day for Hurts, who was very accurate and decisive with the ball and never put the ball in harm's way. And then as for the other quarterbacks, Tanner McKee was 14 for 18, 1 touchdown, 0 interception. Dorian Thompson-Robinson actually got the third string reps over rookie Kyle McCord, going 2 for 2 and not much else. And then McCord was 1 for 1. FYI, for those wondering about other guys trying to make the roster, the touchdown from McKee went to UDFA Darius Cooper, who Brandon Lee Gowton said absolutely torched cornerback BJ Mays. I mean, Cooper has an uphill battle to make the roster, but that's a great sign if he's going to sneak in a spot. Again, QB1 and QB2 are not going to change. I've said that before. Tanner McKee is your QB2. I don't care how much you like Kyle McCord. Now, for QB3, I would take McCord. There's definitely going to be some competition there, much like cornerback 2, because Adoree Jackson actually got reps ahead of Kelee Ringo from Wednesday. However, Ringo still did eventually work in with the ones and even broke down the defensive back group toward the latter part of practice. By the way, staying with that secondary group, Andrew Makuba got nearly all the first-team reps, but Lewis Seen also rotated in along with Andre Sam. And according to Andrew DeCecco, he was thoroughly impressed by Andre Sam's activity on day 2, with DeCecco doubling down on Sam as his player to watch for someone who could steal a roster spot. Either way, let's just say the spirit of competition is infectious, and Brian Baldinger was filling the defense at the start of practice.
Punch out drill right here. Here's how the Eagles, one of the ways that they won the Super Bowl right here. Right? This is just, bam, punch it out. Right? We saw a bunch of guys do it. We saw Zach Vaughn do it. We saw Jalen Carter do it in the playoffs. Punch it out. Right? Here we go. Here's Zach Vaughn. Zach Vaughn is as good as anybody out. He punched it out 5 times last year. That drill is awesome. There we go. Punch it out. Bam. There it is. Nice. That's how you win games.
That's it right there. Defensive takeaways, the drills, we've seen it time and time again. The fundamentals, it paid huge dividends, certainly after the bye week last year, but you just keep drilling it there. I've got a lot of faith in the guys. I'm looking forward to it. You see the peanut punch. I'm just telling you, look out for Andrew Makuba. Also, on the right guard spot, did want to mention, for the record, Tyler Steen was the first right guard up during team sessions because it's his job to lose. All right, fine. That's my personal opinion, and I forgot to ask Stout that being in the presence of greatness.
You know what happened? I froze up!
Give me a break. It was like every hallway we went down, there was a different celebrity, where we ended up taking a pic with Cooper DeJean, and then Big Dom gave us a tour of the locker room while blessing us with about as much Eagles merch as possible.
Next one, medium. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Why not?
Although I gotta admit, after hearing he recognized me and wanted us to come back to his office, there was a bit of adrenaline. Thankfully, as you can see, we lived to tell the tale, but on a serious note, I mean, everyone was incredibly gracious with their time, stopped to say hey, talk for a little bit. It was awesome. For example, Jordan Mailata even met us in the hallway, and I don't think I've ever felt smaller in my entire life. It was also cool to finally meet Jalyx Hunt in person after the Christmas giveaway collab we had last season. Plus, Sirianni even stopped by where I challenged him to a game of horse the next time we're there.
Just a game of horse?
Yeah, there you go.
You wouldn't stand a chance. My money's on this guy.
Which surprisingly, after that, Dom actually invited us back to training camp, so it turns out this may not be a one-time thing.
No, it's one of those ideas where you're just like, yeah!
For real, I don't know how that trip could have gotten much better, so again, a big thank you to Ryan, Olivia, Sloan, the entire Eagles Autism Foundation, because that was just absolutely unreal. Also, shout out to Gary, Corey, Danny, and JD for hanging out with us for a day at the Novacare Complex. Because it was certainly a trip of a lifetime, and I'll try to post several other items on my Instagram page, so if you aren't following me there, then check out the link in the description so you don't miss even more of the behind-the-scenes clips.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think.
Just getting all that content.
Well for both players, so.
See you week 4. We were talking about that earlier.
As always, make sure to drop a like on this video, get your comment in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. This has been the Philly Special.